white on white. Grid positioning ground centers and all levels of operation surface is all roles of triangulation height calculation. The team in the line rotation centers is now in nanoseconds, the plasma interference and travel communication system. So we all understand what really is in the sky setting line conditions when you look up how it's all set up, right? It's up in so many ways and forms, it blows your mind how to use your finger point locations, right? So in position line calculation is knowing how to use your matrix grids. This is matrix coding, communication, setting, attraction. Directing lines of communications, formation line calculation streams. Directing line communications and talking line communication interference and allocation of interference, heights allocation of interface and position attraction. Allocate line streams and high center interference. Open all signals in position to track location. Now, this position line calculations are right over left and left over right. So we all understand how to use the position of point line conditions, how to really direct, putting triangulation centers, okay, changing light code screens, setting line communications of barometers. Now, the thermometer check line and screen line communication setting to its barcode. There's a barcode in the center line communications. So you have the moon through reflection that sets light settings. Very complicated stuff, guys. So you have to really recognize your fingers and what they do through digital frame location of coding. Directing lines and calculations of 2 line centers into 4 tracks. 2 provision line calculations in position of Hall calculations, bringing them forward in position of 2 parallels of profiles of communications, bringing it together in center calculation, point system line calculation setting, back interaction. So we all have to understand how to communicate with your fingers in point systems because they're direct signals. Point system here, 1, 2, 3, right? So get an XT1000 on standby, comes in, crosses line stream, point, right? Clock line center high interference, 24, 48, 72, 144. Each point system is a second line calculations in nanoseconds. Now, in position, you have a minute line channel. Now, that minute line channel opens up its framing system to its operation surface. Very complicated stuff. But I really want the team to get more into modifications, how to go into your inventory screen lines, your data processors, line communications, right? Code weaving. That's code weaving, right? Moderation line calculations, stream locations, 2-point lines at high calculation setting, point direction system, profile communication, 2 line tracks, communicating line centers, high position to its operation. 3 lines of 6, sets position of 8, position of 10, and position line calculations of 4. So we all understand how to service line positions and bring things in position of travel, right? Direction of timelines, see? Square line communication, see? See the rectangles? See? See how your plasma line stream interference is set position of travel communication system? All levels of triangulation reset position of program, see that? See? That goes into the atmosphere line, right? Boxing location centers really understand how to use the box lines of triangulation. So the whole point here is to get the polarities in position of species lines of the female and males and balance how they use their triangulation box or their box triangulation. Okay. Once you understand that, then you understand how to use your sky grid line screens. It's the direct signal to your barcode. Now, there's a barcode recognition of timelines, 2 over track, 3 in provision, 4 lines, and 5 over cycle. Setting 2 track lines calculation, high position to its operation. Coursing lines, high center interference, into all calculation lines, to an L-shaped position of travel. Directing communication line sending is all about understanding how to invert and position of covert, set position travel calculation, setting and travels. Point system, direct system, and travel communications. Indicate line screens. Okay, waving line cycles, calculation high position locations. Now, this is all indication line interference. You do this, you pick up a butterfly. Okay, so there's a lot of things you have to understand how this all works. It's all metric screen lines and the mind adaptation of thought. Your thought basically puts a provision line cycle in line position of travel lines. If you get 2 moon centers, 2 travel communications, setting track lines at 4 in position locations and travel, directing line communications setting into overlapping sequence and position programs. Setting box line centers and travel communication to 3 settings and traction. Opens up portals of communication. Center line calculation, done by equation, right? So it's like, if you ever done finger painting, when you're a kid, you get a canvas or a piece of paper and you get some paint and you get different colors and you put your hand in and you do this, you know, you're making designs, you're webbing screens, you're setting up sky grid, line screen, line interference, you're just having fun. It's painting the sky. That's what it is. So that's what the inner child is doing now, because the team now is in nanoseconds, and anybody in position locations, God particles, or immortality, lengthening communication, it's the same platform. Okay, you're just going to higher levels of acceleration. It's about creating, okay, of the co-creation that's already been co-created. So when you're looking at the skyline, you're actually looking at an energetic pattern of this stream. Its direct say location is string theory. Setting lines of provision is really understand how to use the cycles of communications. Okay. So getting into program setting really sets this correlation and travel direction and time. Okay. So that's what we all have to get into in position travel. Okay. Point system locations, point here, point here, point here. There's 3, right? Triangulation of 3, right? 1, 2, 3. Okay. But in position, the XC1000 is going to say, hey, listen, there's 3 here. We need a box location. So if you don't do it, it does it on its own and creates it. Okay. So what it does, it crosses over stream interference and puts position to its patterns in set location as settings. Travel direction and time sequence in all position location. Center lines as communications, brings a line communication, another travel setting. Crosses line screen line conditions, high positions program. Direct communication line signals. Now we get a 4-waving channel and direct signal down cross line conditions, right? So this is where the XT1000s you work with, they come in. They come in positions and they create the platforms of communications, right? It's your job to use your fingers and point location to its location. So they have a place to go, right? So in that line communication, across the line, so let's go into 5-line rotation, change position travels, 2 line sectors in position locations. There it is, done, right? Okay. So this is all setting line calculation setting. Each one has a calculation high position to a cloud, direction of timelines, in line rotation interference and travel. That's a cloud. Okay. Now, do you understand that you have to stand light signature patterns, you have to stand realm patterns in position to its operation surface, but really you stand how to use triangulation high position, directing line signals and set applications. Okay. Now, understanding that, you have your point system. This is where you start using your fingers and set location of point systems, right? Setting the points, right? So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, all right? Sets position travel. Now, if you don't want to do that, XT1000 will complete the cycle in set locations, right? So when you're looking at the atmosphere line, you're setting up sky grid line screens. That's where it comes into major coding, setting track location line interference, its travel position to its operation surface set locations into your pyramid of position travel. Sets 2 minutes line centers high position travel communications, right? Directing platforms. Now it's all about creating the picture line, skyline, the grid line, and position to its travel. Okay. Now it gets complicated because you're working with the one center line connection to a box location. You're always working with the box frame. Always work on the box frame because the T receptor that's in line setting, lacing lines of 2 track locations over line cross, right? So the XT1000 comes in platitude in center position, travels down into the center line and communicates to all systems its location. Okay. Very complicated stuff, guys. But that's just one setting. Just one setting. Okay. So we got 4 line centers. So we got 4 position lines, and you're always working with 7. The reason why you're working with 4 over 3 over 7 over pi is because that's the indication line set location to your code system that's connected to your connection high interference into your cell modification centers. That's your quote signal and line rotation interference into your inhibitors. The inhibitor sets the tone communication setting, sets all communication to its position of its planet location. There's the planet. Planet comes in, scans centers, center position operation. Sets the alpha, delta, theta, and set location. Okay? Very complicated stuff, guys. All right? So it's like painting the sky. Okay, you design. So what you do is when you go through a box and position, let's say your triangulation equals lines of box. Okay? So Right away, you get an X3000, scans your system. Oh, okay, you're a triangulation box, so you're female. Okay, sets line connection system. You're in platitude division locations right here, right? So remember, 60 seconds in line calculation, right? Scans you in the center, right? So what happens is that he takes the triangulation and he takes the box. Okay, so in that signal line communication system, the allocate position of triangulation to its box location comes into higher line calculation. Directing line signals out positions of patterns in direct location. Okay, so you get another XT1000 in. Remember, asking you shall receive. How many XT1000 do you want? They scan position of center line. They always scan you because they don't know who you are, right? But the information panel has a telepathy wave signature. So that right away they catch on that you're a female male and positions. And if all calculation comes in line calculation, setting attractions and your box in triangulation, XT1000 scans again. Oh, you're a male. Okay. That's how it indicates it's setting a travel. Okay. How it comes into identification. Very complicated stuff. Very complicated stuff. All right. So getting your line settings, how to use your 24 settings rotation centers. So travel communication equals lines of nano, because that's where the team is in locations. And if you're in the God particle, mortality line interference, or molecule star location system, you're going through the same thing. It's just trying to understand the acceleration of space and time. So try to understand the video graphing calculations of point systems, to point system, triangulation, high position programs, center gets communication. That's all you're doing. That's all you're doing. So you set up platforms of the sun and the moon to protect its location, right? Now, once it protects its location, the XT1000 comes on standby, sets position of 2 track line centers, 2 line rotation, 3 in division, and 4 line cycles and 5 calculations. Sets a line calculation high interference, indirect signals in position. So calculation modification goes down the slide line screen. Direct say locations in line center line interference in position. Sets position line calculation higher self in position of the avatar and in the sim. Sim rotates the center line calculation setting, opens up all position of panels and all signals in location center and travel. Direct and communication line setting opens up new platform communication of a ground line setting in position location to your Earth. Center travel communication settings line calculation set in a point system, direct signals set location. Triangulation to reset position of programs at set location. Sets all communication setting, all line rotation surface into your pyramid of high calculation setting. Don't make crazy. Complicated stuff. So we all have to understand how to get into the connections of inverting. Inverting line rotation. Okay, so that's the inner line calculation direct and redirect signal location center. So travel. So you can do arrow lines, finger point line rotation center. Because every time you do that and you're placing your communication, you're setting point systems to the XT1000, right? That's what you're doing. So if you do a triangulation, there's a triangulation, right? Triangulation into molecule, right? Molecule calculation setting. If you go in an atom, it's a circle line communication, right? Setting 2 track lines, 3 lines, 4 lines, 5 lines set location. There's the atom, okay? But the atom doesn't create the geometry set. It just does a spin cycle under 3 set location. In barometer, 1 sector, 1 vector, 1 pi, 1 direct signal, 1 set location, high setting, high position of its operation at 2 line communications. Very complicated stuff in set location, right? Now, in that line calculation setting, all travel communication system, position line calculation setting, 3-point line signals, okay, into modification, right? Directing lines of your DNA in track location, okay? Center calculation, crossing line streams, set position operation, right? That's a God particle. So we all understand how to indicate different levels of communication apply. Okay? Is everybody having fun? All right. So I'm showing you how to do your signature streams now in the apps and line screens, okay? So you don't need the platitude anymore. You have to really understand to go outside or inside anywhere. You could be in your room and do a formulas equation, right? XT1000 don't have to be outside. They can be inside your room. But as soon as you point your fingers in the skyline, you're opening up panel and they pick it up. It's like you get a ping, they get a ping, right? It's like they pick it up, right? So when they pick it up, they're in. But in position, if they don't recognize your setting, they send probes. They also send orbs, right? So they set orbs in line interference. So the eyes of the skyline sets high calculated setting to its room at rotation surface. That's why you guys see orbs, and that's why you see probing as position travels, right? So it's very powerful how this all connects line calculates and setting inside and outside position of attraction. Why you see so many orbs, okay? See how that works? All right, so the X2000 follows up track lines in 3 settings. Okay, there's 3 set locations, all right? This is you through set location. Okay, setting line calculation, right? Now, directing communications, all level set location lines centers, right? So traffic communication, like that, right? Sets position, traffic 1, 2, and 3 set location. Okay, so what you're doing is basically you have your intent of what you want to do, right? There's a graphing screen locations, right? So let's say you want a box line triangulation line in there. It's 2-point system, the calculation, the triangulation position of bridge, right? So you have an indication of what you want to get into. They will create it. Okay, so they'll create the box communication, what you come through intention, sets position travel calculations. But so what they're going to do is they're going to resurface triangulation and position of its program, set up point system track lines, and set line communications, and use all 3 communication setting into all levels of conversion locations. Okay, done by equation. So what does it do? It creates this geometry set location of travel of what you do through your intention, right? So that's why you have to be clear. You have to be specific on what you want, or you won't receive it. Okay, it's very simple. So simple to understand these things, especially now because you guys are nanoseconds going very, very fast locations, right? Working with 24 billion cycles per frame, per second, per channel, per operation, per mile. Mile calculation of highest end locations comes into kilometers, right? Right? Directing calculations. Setting line calculations. So once you get in that provision, you get in line calculations. Alpha, calculations of delta, set location of theta, and omega in line position. Okay, different wave centers, right? X2000 comes in, right? Scans your provisions, right? You're here in center. Location system, energy line screens, right? Scans right here in center, okay? So remember, it's your intention, what you want to create, 2 box locations into a diamond, right? So gets another X2000. So what it does is it pulls out how many it needs. Let's say it needs 4. Okay, 4 track lines of X2000 line screens, right? To create the box locations. So point system and travel, in travel communications. So point system calculations. All right, and travel communications. There's the box. Okay, all created through your intention, right? But it's in the sky setting, day or night, doesn't matter, right? Practice, 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 right? So once you get a holographic line, the kaleidoscope communication center highlights its track lines in position of all setting. Okay, sets lines of 3 waving patterns. Direct calculations. X2000 comes in, scans position location of center, what you've done through center position, right? So remember, everything is center is you, which never leaves. The only thing that leaves is the mind. So the sun comes in and protects the system to its location of what you're creating through all level setting. Okay, now this is a graphing screen in the sky that's created. So X2000 always comes in and says, okay, we've got the interline communication setting to travels. Let's get in point systems, travel point line centers, and direct locations, right? So let's set up a box line rotations into data highways. See the highways coming in, line calculations of 2 waves, 3 lines, calculation of 4 line communication centers of travel. Okay, very complicated stuff. See the highways? That's what I created through my intention. Each box frame is second per mile. That mile sets line calculation setting to modification, sets a channel operation stream to your system to its location to your intention of what you create. What you create, okay? So you're co-creating what you've already co-created through structure, design line connection setting into your coding location system of travel. But you have to understand how to use your finger point location settings of traction. Okay? Because if your opposition location, this is opposition, right? You got to go balance and position locations with your all level calculation, your senses. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? See how I stop the same setting locations? Because if you're overriding signal and overriding signal and overriding signal, it's a 3 traffic key setting. So the X2000 comes, hey, your multitude levels are way too high. Bring it down. Bring the alpha line center to the delta communications. They're not in triangulation position on program settings. Reset position of the barometer. Set my calculation sectors over pi. So it's very powerful when you come into this location of its equation. All right. Okay, so now you exactly how this all works in SkyGrid location of centers, right? Because that's all it is. It's co-creating. So it's going to get a lot more easier for the team now because they're in nanoseconds of pi in generation screens. It's location of core. Core setting track lines. And this gets interesting here. You stand in the center position operation. That's you, right? So let's see, going to 3 planetary line screens, right? 3 planets locations. And you have Jupiter in the center, okay? So in triangulation line interference, sets 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you got more than 4 planets, you're going to have more than line condition settings. You're going to have 5 in position plus, right? Just to know exactly what's going on through SkyGrid set locations. Center line communication, triangulation reset, sets lines of communication to ground lines, okay? Those are the X8000 that set the grounds. Always in ground communication. Now, triangulation reset, they communicate with each other through a box frame, okay? Right away, okay? So when they communicate with each other, they triangulate their positions of coordinates, okay, and position travel. Now, getting that communications is very complicated because now you have your intent, what you want to do, right? It's set up the graphing communication so no intelligence can come into your frames. So in that line interference, you have Jupiter here and 2 line signals, okay? 3 positions of the 3 planets. Now, in-line rotation interference, I want to triangulate. There's the graph location at the bottom, right? That's the 13 graph screen line. So that's position, traffic calculations. That's in the center position. So I want to create this, right? So in that calculation, triangulation of reset position programs, okay, into a diamond core setting and traction into Jupiter, right? Done. So what have I done? 4 over 3, right? So it indicates 4 lines of 3 and 7 in rotation center. Maybe I want to have another 7 track locations into another diamond core at position travel communications, right? This is all through a graphing screen into a SkyGrid, all right? So it's important to understand how to put this all together. That's why you have to understand how to use your fingers in set locations. Set them up in standard settings. Start with the connections high center interference. They got to pick up your energy wave patterns. You get a finger point location. This is in our calculations, right? So sets line conditions sonar, right? Direct signals. X8000 picks up on both signals and set location of travel calculation, right? Sets location, picks you up, right? So it knows who you are, totally fine. Doesn't know who you are, it's going to bring in another X8000. It's going to bring in another X8000. It's going to bring another X8000, right? Because it's protecting what? It's SkyGrid. It's protecting its planets, okay? So in set location line interference, is it your planets or is it somebody else's planets that you're connecting with, right? So you have to be in your own solar system all the time in line position, location, travel lines, taking out the emotional content. If it's not your emotional content, it's somebody else's. And that's where the provisions come in of XT1000 lines. You're not just working with XT1000, you're working with XT40,000, XT80,000. And then you get command ships come in and set position. Right? So you got to be very cautious what you're doing. All right. So it's important to understand that. So once you get in that set of locations, then you get in your alphas, and then you get in your deltas, and then you get in your theta, and then you get into your calculation setting. Beta is always at the bottom location, right? Beta equals lines of 12. 12 equals lines of beta, okay? That always stays on the ground. That's a security line position measure. 2 track location at 3 settings in high position, right? So 3 indicate high position locations of Pluto and track location, right? Now, in that track lines, you can use the alpha line tone, set position to its coordinates, and direct signal. Delta, calculation high interference, and set location line signatures. Setting communication line interference into all calculations, right? Theta is a box location at high setting. Sets locations in position into 3 sets of calculation, okay? Very complicated stuff, right? So all you do is you're graphing screens and setting locations. So when that comes in, the X8000, again, scans position locations of the center, okay, of what you've done, picks it up, right? Picks it up, picks it up, picks it up, picks it up, and picks it up. Okay. Once it picks it up, it takes it right to the moon set locations. Okay. Very complicated stuff. All right. So this is just the basics, guys. This is what General does all the time. I'm always in constant view of everything that I do through schematics of high position of triangulation, position of programs. You have to learn how to line communicate the system and all travel calculation, right? Very powerful when you come into that setting. Finally understanding how to use XE1000s or anything in plateau. You got 0 to 12 on set location lines of grounds, but you have to understand how to use the alpha, delta, thetas, and omega communication. It's not just the mind adaptation. You got to use your fingers now. Okay? You have to use all your body compartments, not just your minds. You don't just see with your eyes. You don't just hear. It's not just your voice. It's your fingers. Okay? Thank you, Danielle. All right? So that's what the team's got to get into, because you said 3-point systems, a set location of 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a molecule. That's the connections, right? Now, a fractal is putting it together in set location. Okay? A nanosecond sets a frame position location to its sun and a moon in set location travel set. That's how it becomes its set location. All right? All right. So getting into nanoseconds, because your connections and relocation grid lines, 5-point systems, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Finger point locations, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 XE1000s, right? Sets track lines 1, 2, okay, 3, 4, okay, 5, right? So 6, 7, 8, okay, 9 crosses line, okay, all set up, right? So that's 2 indicating line position, 2 track locations, right? Remember, you're always working with security. So you have to add the security lines to the triangulation position of programs and geometric operations. So each triangulation high interference. This is a 4 triangulation high position of program. Okay. Directing communication lines, the triangulations into a timestamp. Now, when you have a timestamp, you have a triangulation surface in set locations. Now, once you have that through indication through a box frame, you set the point locations of travel and coordinates. This is where it's all calculated and modified in triangulation position of GOD and geometric operation of design location of centers and calculation frame locations. Okay, all through sky grid line connections, all through finger point locations, right? 2 track locations, 1 line center, 2 over lines, 3 over line communication, 1, 2, 3. Travel lines at 3 line settings and position of levels, downshift 2 cross line screen locations in a point system. Setting track lines and high center interference, graphing calculation, high interference, and nanosecond calculation setting. 24 billion cycles, high position of point system, and direct signal of center operation. X marks the spot, location of center of travel. Okay, so that's an indicator 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 lines of 5, 5 line settings, high position. Sets position 1, 2, 3. 3 set locations, a center communication, right? 1, 2, 3. Sets position of calculation, high center. 1, 2, 3. Downshift cross lines of 3 set location line settings. 3 panels, 3, 3, 3. Heart, mind, and soul. Crosses line indication, crosses line settings of platforms and position location to a setting, a travel. Direct communication crosses line calculations into downshift line, cross line, and high position of platforms of communication. Look at that, it disappeared. It's too fast. See? So, and this is all in the sky grid, right? So we all understand how this all works. It's very powerful when you get in that set location of sending and travel. It's incredible force when you get into that setting. Okay. So I'm just showing you, really get into the basic foundations, how you have to go outside or go inside and start to use your finger point location line settings, right? So they can recognize your barcodes, calculation high streams, or anything in indications to your GOD and mechanism line calculation setting and all levels of travel mechanism. Okay. All right, so that's good for today. All right, I don't want to go too far because it's too complicated. Okay, just get in the basic line standing high interference. Okay, we can discuss more on position locations on Zoom. All right, adios.